Sally, you want to sit on that one? Okay. We're going to be talking about cholesterol today. It's going to be one of the most controversial topics out there. I don't know if you've talked to somebody about cholesterol. I get to talk to people about cholesterol every so often. And when we talk about cholesterol, you can hear people like hissing. Like when it gets to that, like, you know, talk about high cholesterol, you can hear that, like, that sound or that voice in there, like cholesterol. That's like a really bad, dangerous thing. But today we're going to be talking about exposing the fact, and then for you to decide what's true and what's not. My objective is to educate you as much as possible. Now, I'm gonna make a big claim in the beginning of this lecture. Now, because I love what I'm going to be talking about. If at the end of this lecture, for being here today, at the end of this lecture, if you feel this information that I'm going to provide for you today was not life-changing, was not transformative, let me know, and I owe you a dinner for you and somebody.
I already know that.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't even make up your mind. If anybody is not going to find this information life-changing and transformative, let me know. I owe you a dinner for two on me. So that's for being out here today. So fighting through all this traffic and so forth. But let's jump right on, and we're going to start the topic right away. I mean, we all, like, you know, you've all been told, hey, you need to get your cholesterol checked. You need to, you know, monitor your cholesterol, make sure it's below 200 and all that stuff. We're going to dive deeper into all that. But this is one of the health insurances where it said heart diseases continues to be the #1 killer in both men and women. A shameful statistics, because as we found early that heart diseases can be treated and reversed. Did you know heart disease is still the #1 killer in the United States today? Despite all the research we've gone through and done, 50 years later, more people are dying from heart diseases today than 50 years ago. More people are dying from heart disease today than 50 years ago. But with all the technology and advancement we've had, we actually can keep a person alive with a problem longer than we were able to do 50 years ago. But still, the number of people who are dying every single day from heart diseases are more today than 50 years ago. So where did it all go wrong? What happened? How did that all happen? You've all talked about, you know, you've probably heard the term HDL and LDL, good cholesterol versus bad cholesterol, and so forth. And we'll dive deep into that as well.
Right.
So the goal for today, we're gonna have to change it. We're gonna have to talk about a different paradigm, a different way of thinking. So my goal for you today is, when you walk out of here, with more questions, asking more questions rather than having the right answers or having a cookie-cutter answer that is applicable to everybody. So more questions than answers. Understand cholesterol, what cholesterol really is, and examining the tools and the testing that we have available out there today. So that's the goal. Those are the goals for tonight's class. So what is cholesterol? Now, when I make this statement or this claim, people do not agree. But we'll get back to this later. High cholesterol is a normal physiological response. High cholesterol is a normal physiological response, and we'll get back to this later on. What do I mean by that? But we all keep that in mind, that high cholesterol is a normal physiological response. Now, what is cholesterol? Like, you know, we've heard about it. So from the American Heart Association, if you read this, it says, it may surprise you to know that cholesterol itself isn't bad. That's the American Heart Association. Cholesterol itself isn't bad. In fact, cholesterol is just one of the many substances created and used by your bodies to keep us healthy. Created and used by your body. So cholesterol is created by your body. You can eat some cholesterol, but majority of cholesterol is created by your body, especially your liver. And it just keeps, the American Heart Association keeps talking about, it's a waxy substances, and it's needed in every cell in your body. So, and it says here, but cholesterol is also found in food. So it's made in the body, but also found in food. So if you eat diet high in trans fat, that means that's going to increase your cholesterol level in the body and your liver ability to produce more cholesterol. So let's move on to see what the National Institute of Health. This is what surprised me the most. Like the same thing. It's like they say cholesterol is a waxy substance found in every single cell in your body. If the cholesterol is found in every single cell in your body, that means it's needed by every single cell in your body. So if we keep driving cholesterol lower, that means those cells are not going to get the appropriate cholesterol and they're not going to function like they should. So let's take a look at this. I mean, you can grab this chair or you can just move it back there and sit there, whatever you prefer. And is your wife coming in as well?
No, she has a.
That's okay, but you can sit right there. So let's take a look at the 4 main functions of cholesterol. The bottom right there, cholesterol contributes to the structure of the cell. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. It makes up digestive enzymes. So you need cholesterol to make digestive enzymes. It allows the body to produce vitamin D, and we'll talk about all these functions in a little bit. And it enables the body to make certain hormones. So if you don't have cholesterol, your body cannot make certain hormones. And we'll dive into each one of these points one at a time. So we're looking at what the National Institute of Health, what the American Heart Association says. Did you see anywhere there where it says it causes heart attacks? It does not. It does not. Cholesterol itself does not cause heart attacks. But does that mean we want cholesterol to be high? Some people might think like, I want cholesterol to be high. No, we don't want cholesterol to be high. However, we want to see what cholesterol is doing damage in the body and how it is damaging the body. Hi there.
Hey.
There's a chair right there next to Mal.
Okay.
So we want to see what cholesterol is doing if it's high and why it is high. Rather than just, hey, high cholesterol is that, let's try to drive cholesterol lower to like sometimes ridiculous numbers. So we talked about its vital component. The cholesterol is a vital component of the cell membrane. So the cell, if you look at the cell has a structure. And around that cell there is a membrane. And that membrane has components, some of which are cholesterol. And that cell has fluidity. It actually can move, change, allowing things to come in, nutrients to come in, and waste products to come out. If that cholesterol, if we don't have enough cholesterol, the right amount or proportion of cholesterol, that cell membrane is not as fluid and flexible as it should. It becomes rigid, and that eventually leads to more and more problems. So the cell cannot get nutrients in, cannot excrete waste products out. What happens to that cell? Eventually, that cell could actually die, causing inflammation and more problems in the body. So that's one of the main things why we need cholesterol. So, for example, if I cut my finger right now, what happens to my, because I'm going to need to rebuild those cells in my body, right? Mm-hmm. So if I cut my finger, what do you think happens to my cholesterol?
Goes up.
It goes up, right? Because I'm going to need more cholesterol to rebuild those cells and make up the structures of the cells. So if I cut my finger, my cholesterol should go up for a little while, but it should actually come back down after my finger is healed or the cut is healed. So cholesterol is found in large amount in the brain. It's found in the large amount of the brain. So it's needed for brain function. Research shows that cholesterol is vital for older people with memory, whose memory are declining. So people with dementia and stuff like that, they need high cholesterol. The brain represents only 2% of the body weight, but actually has about 20% of your body's cholesterol. It only represents 2% of your body weight, it has 20% of your body's cholesterol. Did you know one of the side effects of cholesterol medications or cholesterol lowering medications is dementia? One of the side effects is dementia because they deplete the body need for cholesterol, and now your brain does not have sufficient cholesterol. Now one of the side effects is dementia. Interesting, right? And that says high cholesterol level in late life is associated with reduced risk of dementia. Who heals faster, a 20-year-old guy or a 70-year-old guy?
20-year-old.
A 20-year-old. So this guy could heal faster, and this guy heals slower at that rate. Who needs more cholesterol? The 70-year-old guy. So like somebody who is 70 years old, definitely their cholesterol is probably going to be a little bit higher than somebody who's 20. And that's normal. And that is normal. cholesterol is needed for brain development for kids. Kids, it's needed for brain development. Did you know that formula, like the kids, when kids go on formula, they have no cholesterol whatsoever because of the misconception that we have about cholesterol out there. So they deplete that from the cholesterol, and it's needed for brain development. It's needed for the synapse, or the connection between the brain neurons, to make new connections, new experiences, and develop. So it's needed for development. And that's what I talked about. It's needed for that synaptic connections between your brain cells. Cholesterol is vital for that. Cholesterol is important for making vitamin D. When the sun hits your body, it needs cholesterol to make the hormone vitamin D. Does that make sense? It needs that hormone to make vitamin D. If you don't have sufficient cholesterol, you're not going to make enough vitamin D. Hi, Juanita. Hello there. There is great. If you don't mind just grabbing that chair from back there, and I love it. You know what? I was actually asking for a standing only room. There it is. That's amazing. So you're gonna have to lift it up a little bit. Yes, thanks. And there's one more back there. Moving back there, right there, and there's one more. Awesome. There's one more shade if you can grab that as well. Yes. Awesome. So, where were we? So, vitamin D. So the sun highlight. The sun hits your body, hits your skin, and it needs cholesterol to make hormone vitamin D. And if you are deficient in vitamin D, the complication of that is just unbelievable. There are books that are written just for the complication if you have vitamin D deficiency. So if you don't have enough cholesterol, your body's not going to make vitamin D. If you don't have enough cholesterol, your body's not going to make vitamin D. Like we talked about earlier, cholesterol is important for digestive enzymes. So now, here's what happened. Your body, if your body needs cholesterol, high demand on your body of cholesterol, your liver is going to make cholesterol, it's going to go to your body's going to use what it needs, and then whatever is left is going to go back to the liver. When it goes back to the liver is going to take that cholesterol, mixes that with salt and water to make digestive enzymes. Now, if you drive your cholesterol low with medications, and we'll look at some really ridiculously low numbers. If you drive your cholesterol low, now there's not enough cholesterol that going back to the liver, not enough cholesterol circulating back to the liver. Now your liver is going to end up with two things, salt and water. Now when the liver uses salt and water to make digestive enzymes, one of the side effects is gallstones. Gallstones. Now if you go to your doctor and you have gallstones, do they ever ask you if you are taking cholesterol medications? No, not at all. But if your cholesterol is deficient, if your cholesterol is way low, that means your liver is not making the right pile, but digestive enzymes, but now it's producing or making gallstones. Interesting, right? And we'll keep going. Sex hormones and energy hormones. So cholesterol is vital and important for most of the hormones in your body. Fertility and all that stuff. Very important. And I love this graph. This is a very simplified graph of what hormones look like and the structure of hormones in your body. And if you see on the top right there, that all these hormones are made out of cholesterol. So you definitely need cholesterol to make all these hormones. Now, since the 80s, there is an increase in the use of cholesterol lowering medications. When we increase the use of cholesterol lowering medications, what happened? Testosterone. If you deplete your body of cholesterol right there, what happened to all these hormones? But what we also noticed that testosterone right there has decreased in a lot of men. Hi there.
Hi, is Dr. Marty here?
He is.
He is?
Yeah, Sherry can get him for you.
Oh, thank you.
So when we drive cholesterol lower and lower and lower, what else are we driving lower? Testosterone. Now, since the 80s, there has been an increase in male enhancing medications. Male enhancing medications since the 80s. Yes, you're probably familiar with Bob right there. He's been on like all these commercials. He's like, okay, you know, we don't want to get too technical, but here, you can take this. But did you know one of the side effects of these male enhancing medications is blindness? You can go blind. So you can go to work, but you can't see what's going on, but you're okay. You know what I mean? So it's ridiculous. If you take a look at this, at that number, 134, cholesterol is supposed to like 134. Now, if you go to your doctor and your medical doctor looks at that, and they look at that number, they'll be very happy. And that's okay, because they were trained that way. But if I look at that, that scares me. If I look at a cholesterol 134, total cholesterol of 134, that scares me. Because now your body's not making all the vital functions, not making hormones, not making vitamin D, it's not making digestive enzymes, and all that stuff. Your body is depleted from all these vital things that your body needs. That number scares me, but if you go to your medical doctor looks at that, and they probably even feel proud for lowering your cholesterol all the way down there. Did you know what's the average or the normal cholesterol? They want your cholesterol to be below 200, right? Below 200, right? Did you know that in 2004, what was the average or the standard? Does anybody know? In 2004, it was actually 240. 240. It was 240.
Yeah.
So what happened in 2004, or up till 2004, people got smarter and started exercising, eating properly, and they did not need as much or as many drugs or medications to lower their cholesterol. Now, pharmaceutical companies got together and decided, it's like, hey, that's not good for business. So we're gonna have to come up with a new standard. And the new standard is, let's lower cholesterol or limits to 200, so people now, more people can use or need to use low cholesterol lower medication. And I would not be surprised if they drop that even lower. But do you see where, like I said in the beginning, it's about paradigm change and shifting the way we think about things. Because when we talk about the functions of cholesterol, would you want your cholesterol to be that large? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This lady, I mean, this is like, she came to one of our offices and she could not get pregnant. I think she was in her 20s or 30s. She could not get pregnant. Had a family history of cholesterol issues. Family history. She does not even have high cholesterol herself. So they gave her medications, and if you can see her number, or if you see this pregnenolone right there, first her cholesterol was very, very low. As a result of that, she could not make any hormones. Let's go back so you can actually remember this name right there. If you go back to that graph right there, you see where cholesterol right there, it breaks down and it makes pregnenolone. That's the first step right there. And if you take a look at her number, it was less than 5. Less than 5. And because of that, she was depleting her cholesterol with medication. She could not make any of the rest of the hormones that her body needs for her to stay healthy and become pregnant. So that's another side effects of that. Now, when we talk about statin and low cholesterol lowering medications, do cholesterol lowering medications lower cholesterol? Do they lower cholesterol?
Yeah.
They do, right? They do. But have you ever thought of how cholesterol medications target cholesterol and lower cholesterol? It's actually very interesting, because some people think it's like, okay, these medications are going to go into the bloodstream and they're going to just grab those cholesterol, the extra cholesterol, and takes them out. But that does not work like that. Let's take a look at how it works. Like we said, statin medications actually lower cholesterol. By the end of this conversation, I want you all to memorize this pathway. Did anybody take chemistry or like in high school or college or something like that? I think we had enough memorization. But this is how your cholesterol is made. This is the pathway to make cholesterol in your body. Now, when you take cholesterol lowering medications, those cholesterol lowering medications are not going to go and just grab this cholesterol and stick to it and takes it out of the body. They don't do that. So what the cholesterol lowering medications do, they found this enzyme right there, HMAJ called reductase, and they inhibit their function. They inhibit the function of that enzyme. So what that means is those low cholesterol lowering medications are gonna stop the pathway right there. So whatever the body needs past that point, the body cannot make. The body cannot make. Now, one of the biggest thing, so when they tell you to take cholesterol lowering medications because your cholesterol is high, what is the biggest benefit they claim? Why do you need to take
Prevent heart disease.
Prevent heart diseases, right? Okay, you're gonna take cholesterol medications. They're aware, because I didn't say all these side effects, or I didn't make up all these side effects. They are actually on the prescription medications or on the package. It's there, and they are aware of the side effects, but they told you take this because your body needs it, otherwise you're gonna have heart attack. Now, when you go home today, I want you to look up CoQ10, coenzyme Q10. Now, CoQ10 is very important for the function of your heart. It's very important for the function of your heart, and if you deplete your body of CoQ10, that could lead to heart attacks. So now you're trying to prevent heart attacks, quote unquote, trying to prevent heart problems, yet you're depleting your body one of the essential elements that are needed for the health the health of your heart, basically. So that when you take medications, when you take cholesterol lowering medications, you're depleting your body of CoQ10. Did you know that in Canada, if you take cholesterol medications, in Canada, if you take cholesterol medications, you must take CoQ10. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's by the law. It's by law. If you take cholesterol medications in Canada, you must take CoQ10. Hi, Lillian. Does that make sense? I'm good. Sorry, you're probably gonna have to stand, but it's a good exercise.
I need to stand.
Good. So in Canada, if you take cholesterol medications, you must take CoQ10. And also, I think they do it here in the US too. Every 6 months, you have to check the function of your liver. If you're taking cholesterol lowering medications, you have to check the function of your liver. Why is that? Because these medications do not just grab cholesterol and excrete it out of the body, they actually damage your liver. So every 6 months, if you're taking cholesterol lowering medications, you must check your liver. So that's how it works. That's how cholesterol lowering medication works. Yes,
Can you stop taking it? What will it do to you if you stop taking it?
You know, I have a really good, with the Wellness Way, the founder, Dr. Patrick Flynn, he was asked the same question. And he said, if you stop taking, because I cannot take you off of cholesterol lowering medication, but what he said was a very profound. He's like, it won't break your heart and it won't break mine. You know what I mean? It won't break your heart and it won't break mine. It's like literally, it won't break my heart and yours, but it's your decision. I mean, if you stop, you stop. Yes.
I mean, when you go to a doctor, there are two numbers they're looking at, the good cholesterol and the bad cholesterol. When you're discussing here, which one are they talking about?
We're talking about total cholesterol.
Okay.
And we briefly talked about good and bad cholesterol, but we're gonna dive deeper, a lot deeper into that.
What about if your the total cholesterol is not good, but your triglycerides are okay? So then, is it all right, or is still there?
See, like triglycerides are more dangerous to your heart than total cholesterol.
Oh.
Yes, and we'll talk about that as well.
Okay.
Yes. So questions, fire questions. But if I feel that I'm gonna address those questions later, we're gonna address them. But if you feel like there was not sufficient information, or you need more detail, let me know at the end of the talk. So these medications are just damaging your liver. Have you looked at the side effects? Like ridiculous. Like the list goes on and on. You can just read that, from muscle pain, dehydration, and so forth. And recently it actually says cholesterol medications worsens diabetes and cancer. Worsens diabetes and cancer. So if you're diabetic, or you have a family history of cancer, it could actually, cholesterol lowering medications could make that worse. Make sense? I can, the side effects, we probably need a whole hour to just talk about the side effects. But I just want you to, just, like I said, a paradigm shift to understand the concept.
Is there ever a time where a cholesterol lowering medication is beneficial in real life?
There is, if your cholesterol is 500, yes, I mean, you need to lower it that moment. But here's the thing, but you can't take it for the rest of your life. You'd rather find out why it's high. You might have to take, I mean, I don't have a problem with you taking cholesterol medications for a little while, but if you have to take it for the rest of your life, that's crazy. I mean, I have a patient her cholesterol is 450, but she refuses to take cholesterol medications.
What happens if she don't?
That's what we're investigating. Now we're investigating because it's not about the cholesterol, but what kind of damage that high cholesterol is causing to her blood vessels and her heart. And that's what we're investigating, and that we're gonna go in detail into that as well. So because if she doesn't, and there is a damage, first we have to find out why her cholesterol is high. Second is how much that high cholesterol, or how long that high cholesterol has been going on for, and how much damage is already done to her heart, to her blood vessels. And that's something, when it comes to the medical community, they don't check for, because there's no way that there's no medications to manipulate the numbers until we are struck with heart attack or something like that, until it's too late, basically. So if your cholesterol is that high, I don't have a problem with you taking medications, but you can't take a medication for the rest of your life. Make sense? So side effects, and we just talked about all these side effects. So where did it all go wrong? We're gonna talk about history. So that way you understand where this whole concept of high cholesterol, low cholesterol, where did it all go wrong? It was 1950s. So this guy, Ansel Keys, he's an economist and a zoologist, I think. So what he did in the 1950s, it was after World War II, he did a study correlating consumption of high-fat diet with death from heart attacks and so forth. So he actually took 22 countries, and followed their diet and see what kind of diet they have, and correlate that with how much death or how many deaths they have from heart attacks and so forth, death in general. So when he published his article, that was his finding. Those are where. Greg, do you need the chair?
I'm fine. Go ahead.
So this was the finding, and if you don't you don't have to be a researcher. So I'm gonna just explain what this means. When we look at research, and there is a good correlation, if there is a good correlation between two lines like these two, that's a good research. If I take this line and put it on top of this, they can actually match each other, right? That's a really beautiful correlation. But remember what I said just a few seconds ago, that he followed 22 countries. He followed 22 countries. And if you look at these countries, how many countries do we have here? We have 6. We have 6 countries that actually have that beautiful trend right there. 6 countries. So what happened to the other 16 countries? What happened to the other 16 countries? They actually did not follow the trend. So out of 22 countries, 6 countries followed the trend, and 16 countries did not follow the trend that he was actually assuming. So the other 6 countries, even though they were consuming high-fat diet, the number of deaths were not the same. They did not fall into that trend. And you see these dots right there? These dots are all over the place. Basically, from a scientific perspective, looking at this article or looking at this research, was a fraud, basically. To actually just take the 6 countries that matches your hypothesis or your claim, and you take these countries and you publish them as an article. So this article was not even peer-reviewed. It was not peer-reviewed in a journal. It was just a publication. So, and that's what where the whole thing of cholesterol started. If we go back to these countries, right there, if we go back to these countries, like look at Japan, Italy, New England, all these countries, it was like I said, after World War II, and these countries were decimated by the war. They were decimated. So after the war, do you think there was a lot of stress with people? And did you remember those pathways for cholesterol? They actually make stress hormones as well. So if you're stressed out, do you think your cholesterol can go up high if you're stressed out? Yes, it does, because that's what your body needs to deal with stress. And these countries were stressed out after the war, right? But still, despite all that, still, the other 16 countries did not even follow the trend. That's where it all started. Now, at that 1950s, I think it was President Eisenhower who died from a heart attack, 1950s, around that time. And that's where the whole thing started. And then it was just published and it was just made humongous. But they never mentioned that his diet was not good. He was a smoker and a drinker. So it was not just the high-fat diet that he was consuming, but he was a smoker and he was a drinker. And that's when that become a first-page news that cholesterol is the bad guy. And that's where it all started. So the beginning, we've been treating people or leading people in the wrong direction based on an article that's not even scientific, that has no basis, basically. So when you look at, when we talked about the cholesterol, the majority of your cholesterol is made in the liver. So your body needs cholesterol because we talked about cholesterol is important for hormones, for vitamin D, for cell structure, for the brain function. Your body needs cholesterol. Every single cell in your body needs cholesterol. So this is the liver, the big thing right there. That's the liver, and that's what makes your majority of your cholesterol, right there. So diet and exercise, or actually, how much can you consume? How much cholesterol can you consume? You can consume about 10 to 20%. That's how much cholesterol you can eat. The other 80% is produced by your liver as a response to what your body demands on it. So that means if your cholesterol is 400, if you have a high cholesterol of 400, and you start working out, exercising, and you start eating healthy, that means you can drop your cholesterol by about 10 to 20%. That's it. You can drop it by 10 to 20%, which is not bad. Still, you need to find out why your liver is producing that much cholesterol in the first place. Attack that problem, fix the problem, and your body can actually lower cholesterol, and it's not going to produce as much cholesterol. But if you go do diet and exercise, that's going to drive your cholesterol by only 10 to 20%. Make sense? So what do they test for cholesterol? And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. They test total cholesterol, triglyceride, LDL, and HDL. Now, can they actually test your total cholesterol? They actually cannot, from your blood, they cannot actually calculate, they cannot measure your total cholesterol. They have to calculate that. It's calculated. And this is the way it's actually calculated. So if we talk about VLDL, VDL is very low density lipoprotein. They can measure that, and that's how they get your total cholesterol. So if you look at this equation, and I want you to memorize this because we're going to get back to this in a second. If you look at this equation, it's VLDL, LDL plus HDL, and your VLDL is your triglycerides divided by 5. It's your triglycerides divided by 5, and that's how you get your total cholesterol. So they cannot measure your total cholesterol in your body. It's calculated. Now, if we need to get back to this, we will. If you take a look at these numbers, so remember we talked about, if you take a look at this, your HDL, 139. That's good. That's good, 139. Your triglycerides is 64. HDL is 67. And your LDL is 126. You see these things? They're normal. They're within the normal limit. Now, if anybody has a calculator, does anybody have a calculator in their phone?
Yes.
Okay, okay, John, you're going to be my volunteer. You're going to be my volunteer. So, take 64 and divide that by 5. Okay? Now, we're going to add to this, we're going to add your 67, and we're going to add 126. What? 205.8. That's about 206. So, what did we get for the total cholesterol way up there? 206. Now, how do we, not to just prove that equation, but how did we add up normal plus normal plus normal, yet we get high cholesterol? Does that make sense? So if everything is normal, and you cannot measure cholesterol by itself, you cannot take a measurement and count how many cholesterol particles that you have in your body, Yet we're taking normal plus normal plus normal. All these are within the normal limit, and you still get a high number, and you have to take cholesterol medications.
Isn't that why sometimes they give you the additional one that says LDL to HDL ratio or something like that?
Yeah, there are some ratios which are better than the total cholesterol. Yes, yes. So, but it's still, if your cholesterol is high, you have to take medications. Some even like go a step further. If you have a family history of cholesterol, like that lady with infertility, you have to take cholesterol lowering medications, which is insane. So, we like good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. We've all heard about that. Which one is the good cholesterol? HDL is the good cholesterol. LDL is the bad cholesterol. Now let me ask you this. So HDL and LDL, are they, like we just talked about, that cholesterol is actually, are they made in the body or are they consumed? They're made in the body. When did your body start making bad stuff for you? Was your body designed to make bad stuff for you? Absolutely not, right? But did you know that HDL and LDL are not even cholesterol? Did anybody know that? They're not even cholesterol. They're protein. And that's what they stand for, high density lipoprotein. For HDL, LDL is low density lipoprotein. Because cholesterol is fat, and fat cannot be transported in the blood by itself because it's not water soluble. So it needs a transporter, and this is what transports cholesterol from your liver to where it needs to go. So HDL and LDL are not even cholesterol. They're the taxi that takes your cholesterol from point A to point B and from point B to back to the liver. Same thing, low density lipoprotein and triglycerides. That's the other thing they measure. Now, when you have triglyceride, if you look at your test and your triglyceride is high, what does that tell me? Stop consuming a lot of sugar, carbs, and starch. If that's what it is. Triglyceride is high, because you're consuming a lot of sugar, a lot of starches, a lot of carbs. So stop taking that. And this, like I think we're going to look at some of the articles. I think I included them here, where it's actually a more damaging to your blood vessels than total cholesterol. So that's what it is, because that's high level. It could actually it has a better correlation with cardiovascular diseases than total cholesterol. Make sense? Triglycerides. These are the incomplete and unreliable way to test cholesterol. We just talked about lipoproteins are just a transporting mechanism for cholesterol. This is a cholesterol cycle. And we'll talk about why they call LDL and HDL good and bad cholesterol. So your body, your liver makes cholesterol right there, and it transports that cholesterol to your blood, and the blood takes that cholesterol to wherever it needs to go to fix damaged cell, to your organs to make more cortisone, whatever, based on your stress level and so forth. After the body uses what it needs, your HDL takes it back to the liver. So LDL right there is the bad guy because he is taking cholesterol from the liver into the body, increasing your cholesterol, potentially your cholesterol amount in the blood or in your body. So they call it the bad guy. I mean, that's the bad guy. HDL is the good guy because it's taking cholesterol from the bloodstream or from your body back to the liver. So it's decreasing the amount of cholesterol in your body, right? And that's the good guy. But like we talked about, they're not eating cholesterol, right? This is just talking about that very low density lipoprotein right there is produced in the liver, and it actually goes in correlation with the LDL, and very low density lipoprotein right there has a more damaging potential to your blood vessels and your heart than LDL itself. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, because very low density lipoprotein is a smaller version of LDL. So it's a smaller version. It actually can get through the lining of your blood vessels to damage and actually cause clogging and so forth in that area. Because if you think of the lining of your blood vessels like a net, like a net, and if you have a tennis ball right there, and that's the LDL, the tennis ball is going to hit that net, and it's gonna bounce back. It cannot get through the lining of your blood vessels. Now, if we take a golf ball, that golf ball can have a better chance of getting through that net to under the layer of your blood vessels, which could lead to damage to that area and clogging up of the arteries at that space. So that's why the very low density lipoprotein have worse damaging potential on your blood vessels and arteries right there. Sounds good? But if you do your test, they don't even look. They don't even mention that. They don't even look at it. They don't even mention it. Like we talked about, this is the cycle APLB right there. These are like proteins that are in correlation, or they go along ahead. With your LDL. So your LDL to transport stuff into your body. I know this is technical, so just bear with me for a little bit, and we'll get past this. It actually needs this to transport stuff. This is like what guides your LDL through your bloodstream. And this could actually be measured with testings, but it never does, or nobody mentions it. And we'll talk about the damaging potential of that. But if you want, and also if you need a copy of these slideshow, let me know. So you don't have to take a lot of notes. I can email them to you. So that way you can just read more about what all these testings and so forth. I wanna pinpoint a few things. When you look at this test right there, when you go to your doctor and they test your cholesterol, they normally test the basic stuff, and that's the top portion right there. That's what they test for. Does that make sense? So they test for that, and if you look at that, if you look at, like we talked about, ABOP and LDLP, all these they don't test for. For example, let's take a look at this. LDLP, which stands for particle, and that means how many particles of LDL you have in your bloodstream. If you have bad traffic on a freeway, is there an increased chance of having accidents? Exactly. Now, if you have a lot of particles in your bloodstream, is there a better or an increasing chance of clogging up your arteries because you have a lot of particles there? But they never test for these things right there, and we'll talk about more of these in a little bit. They never test for them, and why do you think they never test for them?
They don't help sell a drug.
Exactly. There's no medications to manipulate these particles. They don't have medications to manipulate these numbers, and if there are medications to manipulate these numbers, they would test for them. And if you go to your doctor and say, can I get a comprehensive cholesterol analysis with all these markers? They'll be like, you're crazy, you don't need it. You don't have heart attack. Or you're not gonna, you don't need it. But the good news is, you don't even need your doctor. You don't even need your doctor to authorize this. You can actually go to the lab itself. It's called True Health, and they can do the test for you. And if you need more detail about that, let me know, and I can guide you in that direction as well. So here's where the confusion happened. Like if you take a look at that, it says LDL is considered good for your heart health. That's from American Heart Association. So if you go to your doctor and they say, hey, this is the guideline, these are the guideline for you to follow. We have to lower your cholesterol very, very low. There's like a guy that was actually dropping people's LDL to like 20 or 10, and he had actually had a video on YouTube, and he was very proud of himself because there was like this thing that he was giving people to just block the production of LDL. And that's the guideline. If you go to your doctor and your doctor said your LDL have to be very, very low and we have to lower your LDL, he does not know what the guidelines are. He does not know what the guideline, because this is the guideline from the American Heart Association. However, your LDL number should no longer be the main factor or guidance for treatment and prevention of heart attacks and strokes, according to new guidelines from the American Heart Association. For patients taking statin, the guideline says that they no longer need to get LDL cholesterol level down to a specific target number. They don't. That's for the American Heart Association. And if your doctor is still pushing for you to lower your LDL to a very small number or non-existent number, if your LDL is very low, can your liver make cholesterol, and can that cholesterol be transported into your body? You cannot transport your cholesterol to the body. And like we said, the four main functions, so one of them, a few main functions of the liver, of the cholesterol, is cell structure, hormones, vitamin D, and brain function. So you need cholesterol from the National Institute of Health. Every single cell in your body needs cholesterol. Every single cell in your body needs cholesterol. So all these lipoproteins and all these, they must be measured and calculated. And that's one of the comprehensive. It's really like when you get your test, that's what it looks like. If it's in the green, that's good. If it goes past that into this, like yellow, it's something questionable. And that red, that's something dangerous and you need to look at. And I'll give you like some ideas of what that looks like. So, inflammation of the cells are what causes your cholesterol to go high. Remember what I said earlier, if I cut my finger, I need to restructure these cells. That means I need more cholesterol. As a result of that, my body's gonna produce more cholesterol, right? Same thing. Let's take a look at what happens. So this is just an illustration. This is the inside of your blood vessels. And if you have inflammation inside of your blood vessels, you're gonna damage these blood vessels, eventually causing your body to produce more cholesterol. But what happened? Now when we say like we have clogging up of the arteries, what do you think happened? Do you think that cholesterol just comes into that blood vessel and they stick to the blood vessels? What do you think happened? It does not. Like if your blood vessels are clear and they're not inflamed, they're not damaged, and if you have cholesterol in your bloodstream, that cholesterol is just gonna keep on. It's gonna keep going, and eventually it's gonna go back to the liver. Now, if there is damage to those blood vessels, the cholesterol is gonna have to stick around to prepare and help calm down the inflammation. And more cholesterol in that area, and along with other things like we talked about, VLDL and so forth, that's gonna cause clogging up of the arteries. So cholesterol, high cholesterol itself, if we have high, that's an indication, but it's not the cause of the problem. Now doctors like, hey, when we measure the bloodstream, there's a lot of cholesterol. Like heart doctors, when they move the clogging up from the arteries, it's like there is a lot of cholesterol. There is, because there is an inflammation and there is a problem. But if you show up to your house and your house is on fire, there are a lot of firemen in the house, are you gonna blame the firemen for the fire? It doesn't make sense, right? You can't blame the firemen for the fire. They're there to put off the fire. Same thing, cholesterol is there to put off the fire. What's causing the fire? There's a heart surgeon, I forgot his name, but he'd done over 5,000 open heart surgery, and he said what we've been telling the American people about high cholesterol has been wrong. It's not like what they were pushing prior was high carb, low fat diet. And he said that high carb, low fat diet is what's causing more inflammation in the blood vessels, damaging the blood vessels, causing high cholesterol and clogging up of the arteries. One of the biggest inflammatory marker out there is sugar. So if you can get off sugar, I'm not just talking about sugar like, you know, when you go to you go to Starbucks in the morning and add sugar to your coffee. No, we're talking about all the sugar right there. It could be natural, but it's still damaging your body. Fruits, if you consume a lot of fruits, that could be a lot of sugar in your body, damaging your body as well. So he was actually gave this like gruesome analogy. It's like if you take a hard brush or something like that and just scratch your body or scratch your skin, but you're not gonna scratch it very aggressively, just slowly. What happens to your skin? It becomes red. That's what he said, it becomes red. But if you keep doing that over time, it gets redder and redder, and it's actually not gonna feel good. And that's what you're doing to your blood vessels and your side of your arteries if you're actually consuming sugar every single day. What does your body need to do? If you're actually inflaming your body every single day, your body's gonna need to calm down the inflammation. If your body needs to calm down the inflammation, cholesterol is gonna go up high because your body needs cholesterol to calm down the inflammation. Make sense? So this is what the inside of the blood vessels look like. If, like I said, if it's clear and healthy, the inside, the lining inside right there, it's the endothelial cell. It's the endothelial layer. It's a 1 cell thick layer. It's a 1 cell thick layer. And if that cell or that endothelial layer is intact, that means cholesterol, if there's no inflammation, no damage to that layer, cholesterol can get passed on and goes back to the liver, okay? But what happens if you actually, if you damage that layer? That just talks about that endothelial layer inside your blood vessels. What happens if you damage that? Now you have a small damage in that area. Now cholesterol, not big cholesterol particles, it's actually the small one, the VLDL. Remember we talked about the net, and you have big particles can get there and some of them cannot get through that net. They go in there, and that's what eventually causes the blocking up of the arteries right there. So it's the damage to these layers allowing these cholesterol particles to get inside your blood vessels. So, have you ever heard of this LPPLA2? And that's a marker that was among the tests that we actually look for and test for. If you look at the blood vessels, we're looking at a picture of the blood vessels right there. This is the lining of the blood vessels. This area has already been damaged, and now we started having cholesterols and other particles are accumulating there, causing clogging up of the arteries right there. Now, how stable is this blockage right there? How stable is it? It's actually very stable because we have this thick layer protecting. It's around that layer. There's a layer above it. It's protecting it. So it's very stable. So now, if you test your cholesterol and your LPPLA2 is high, what is that? Why is that a concern? Because this marker, what it does, it attacks this layer and it thins it out. So that layer becomes thinner and thinner and thinner. Eventually, this plaque right there could become unstable and dislodges from this big artery right there and goes on in the bloodstream. When it gets to smaller arteries, it could clog them up, and then a heart attack happens. So why is that important? Because it's actually thinning the blood vessels right there. That tells me if you have blockage in your blood vessels, it tells me how stable or unstable that blockage is. Does that make sense? But that's never tested or checked or evaluated because we don't have a medication to manipulate LBPL2.
Wait, so
We don't.
the presence of LPPLA2 shows that protective layer is thinning?
It is thinning. So the blockage is not stable. It could actually dislodge and gets into that small arteries and clog them up real quick. Make sense? So how does these, like we talked about the inflammatory markers and so forth, how do you know that if you're actually developing blockage in your arteries? How do you know? I mean, beside the fact that you have symptoms, beside the fact you're consuming sugar and so forth, but here's the thing, some people can actually consume sugar and have no problem, right? And that's okay, that's normal, because if you look at the person next to you, you're different. Everybody's different. Everybody's genetic is different. Everybody reacts different. Some people actually can consume sugar. Have you seen somebody who was like smoking and drinking and so forth, and they're 100 years old and they're still kicking, right? Somebody who's never smoked, exercise every single day, eat properly, and they drop down with a heart attack at 45. Mm-hmm. So how do you know that you're actually damaging your blood vessels and you're developing these blockage in your blood vessels? And that's what some of the markers, one of those markers is homocysteine. Homocysteine is actually an inflammatory marker in your body, and if that number is high, indicating that you're damaging those blood vessels, the inside of the blood vessels, which leads to cholesterol particles to get in there and develop that blockage. So that's one of the markers. If you've never had your homocysteine tested, you better get on it. So that's one of the indicators that you're actually developing blockage in your arteries. That's one thing. I think there's so C-reactive protein, that's another thing. C-reactive protein, it's another inflammatory systemic inflammation. C-reactive protein, it tells us if you have any inflammation in your body and you're damaging your blood vessels and arteries right there. And LDH. So this is very interesting. If you read this, the level of C-reactive protein, which can be measured in your blood, increases when there is inflammation in your body. Your doctor might check your C-reactive protein for the treatment treatment for infection or for other medical condition. A high sensitivity C-reactive protein test, which is more sensitive than standard tests, also can be used to evaluate your risk of developing coronary artery disease, a condition in which arteries of your heart are narrowed. Coronary artery diseases can eventually lead to heart attacks. So this is a measurement that some doctors actually look into and check and evaluate. It's probably a $25 test you can actually get by yourself. Now, despite that, let's say that you went to your doctor and your doctor found out that your C-reactive protein is high. What do you think they're going to do? Probably nothing. If anything, they'll probably give you anti-inflammatory medications rather than finding out why your C-reactive protein is high in the first place. And treating that rather than treating your the problem. 19 years old, C-reactive protein. Do you see that number? 75.1. Do you know what's the good number for C-reactive protein?
Says less than 3.
Less
It
than
says
3.
over
Yes,
there.
from the dinner. Yes, less than 1. If your C-reactive protein is less than 1, that means you have no risk of heart attacks. If it's between 1 and 3, you have a moderate risk of heart attack. If it's above 3, your chances of having a heart attack is twice as high to somebody who's 1 or less. So it increases your chances of having heart attacks tremendously. What do you think her chances of having a heart attack? 75.
Hasn't she had one?
Probably, exactly. Hasn't she had one already? It's insane. So more information about homocysteine. This is really interesting. It's a common amino acid found in the blood, and it's acquired from eating meat. High level of homocysteine are already related to early developing of heart and blood vessel problems. Early development. So if you find out that you have homocysteine, if you have heart attack, if you're having a heart attack right now, would you want to find out about it today or 10 years from now?
Now.
Today, now,
Yesterday.
right? Or yesterday. Exactly. Joe.
Does that mean that these high meat, no carb diets are actually dangerous in some ways?
They could be. Yeah, they could be. So especially red meat. That's why there's like that. But when it comes to red meat, if it's grass-fed, organic, it's some of the healthiest stuff you could eat because of the omega-3s and anti-inflammatory that you have in there. So yes. So homocysteine. Let's see. So if you take a look at it, doctors are not sure how or even if homocysteine increases the risk of heart and blood vessel diseases, but there appears to be a link between high homocysteine level and damage to the arteries, leading to atherosclerosis, which is blockage of your arteries. They have no idea why, but there is a correlation. If there is a correlation, shouldn't we do something about it? And it's just homocysteine is an inflammatory factor that's damaging your blood vessels, and that's what it is. We're still talking about homocysteine. It is suggested that homocysteine might promote atherosclerosis, which is, like we said, blockage of your arteries. Sherry, can I get some water, please? Thank you. So this guy, look at this guy, 14.9 homocysteine level, 14 point right there. But you see what else is going on? All his cholesterol markers are up high as well. And his homocysteine level is 14.9. Interesting, huh? Okay, again, another lady with a homocysteine of 27. So like we said, these markers are not standard because there's no medications to manipulate these numbers. Thank you. Remember what I said earlier? High cholesterol is a normal physiological response. It's a normal physiological response to a stressor. So if you want to lower your cholesterol, what do you want to do? Find out the stressor, right? Find out what the stressor is and do that. So I have one of my patients. We did her cholesterol test. We looked at it. Cholesterol is high, and she was surprised that I was not going to give her something to lower her cholesterol. Because we're not in that model. We're not in the model of lowering cholesterol and managing symptoms. Okay, why cholesterol is high? Let's fix that. cholesterol is going to drop down. Because if your cholesterol being high is probably a good thing for your body, right? So like, when did your body start making bad stuff for you, right? So what's causing your cholesterol to be high, and that's what we need to do, and I think that's pretty much it. Now, we're going to stick around for any questions and so forth, but to continue this educational series, we're going to be doing, or we're going to be talking about thyroid next month. Thyroid. So, thyroid is one of the other things. Thyroid is like, did you know that your thyroid actually makes hormones that are needed in every single cell in your body? And if your body cells do not get thyroid hormones, they die. So so if you take thyroid medications to lower your thyroid hormones, you're not doing your body any service. So next class, it's gonna be a Thursday. So we're gonna switch it around from Wednesday to a Thursday to see how that works for people. And it's gonna be the 22nd, 6:30 p.m. I have the flyers right there. Thyroid next month to continue this process. Now I'm gonna stick around. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If I don't have your email address, make sure you put your email address there so I can send you the slideshow. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna put the slides